one last caller here, and this is going to be a non-hand call. This guy reached out to me on Discord, my CLP Discord, if you're a sub, and he wanted to talk about the video because, we put out this video from the worst poker ruling in the history. And this gentleman, I'm going to call him John, that's not his name, but just so I can call him something, works at a major North American casino in surveillance. What's up, John? How you doing?
Hey, good day. Good day, sir. How are you?
Good. So, and John, we actually had a little bit of a pre-call just because I wanted to see what he had to say, pointed out something that we will commonly, that I had said in the video, and that people will sort of commonly mix up the terminology that in a casino you have security, which are like security guards, right? And people that handle the loss of fun. And then you have surveillance, right? They're not the same department.
They're two separate entities that work together for the greater cause.
So you wanted to comment about, I think there were a lot of comments on YouTube about that particular video. And a lot of people had said, oh my God, what a scam. Like the bike, they can determine like what people hold and the board for a bad beat jackpot, but they can't determine this. That's bullshit. Now, me, because I'm pretty experienced in this business, I've actually been surprised at the number of calls that we've had recently where people have said that the casino has gone to surveillance to the cameras and the cameras have actually resolved the issue. I always go into it thinking that the cameras are not going to resolve the issue, that it's like 50-50. So it wasn't surprising to me that they came back and said they can't see the cards. Do you care to comment on that?
No, and I'm not entirely surprised with that answer either. Based on the hand we're talking about where the two guys had the pocket kings and the pocket aces, and
right.
The one guy had the five flush, but he didn't realize it himself. At first glance, unless the surveillance operator is directly zoomed in on a board and players' cards, it is very difficult to see what suits the cards are, especially the black ones, because they're not necessarily pointy, or a diamond is pointy and a heart is round, versus a club and a spade, where they're pretty close on the bottom half. But the smaller graphic cards are very, very hard to see with the still cameras and the overhead cameras. But if an operator were using a PTZ camera, or pan tilt zoom, whatnot, and they were actually watching the action on that hand, they could see it. But on the fly, in a review sort of standpoint, it would be very hard to see those cards based on, like, the lighting could be bad, the camera could be far away from the table, there could be people leaning over the table, like all kinds of different things that make it very difficult to see what the actual suits are.
So what you had said to me too before, that there's different types of cards, right? Like the traditional chem cards, which kind of had the smaller numbers and the smaller suits, those are much harder for the camera to see than like if anybody's played on a live stream with the jumbo cards or whatever they're called.
Definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. Most of the poker rooms that use the tiny graphics with the tiny numbers, I mean, they're great on the table. They look cool or whatever. But when you're trying to get a view from overhead from a camera, the ones with the definite larger pictures, the larger numbers, the larger pips where you can see more definition in the shapes, sort of like ones you would see more on a casino floor where people are playing 3-card poker or 4-card poker or pie-gout poker, any of those cards. Those are the cards that are really good for seeing, where you can see those suits without a doubt.
And right, you can see those suits without a doubt. And some people are saying, why don't they use 4-color decks in casinos? That's actually been tried before, and it's just not accepted for some reason. It's like everybody now uses 4-color decks when they're playing online, unless they're like a masochist, right? Because people are multi-tabling. But 4-color decks just haven't necessarily caught on, in a live venue. Let me ask you this question about the way that surveillance works in terms of how they record the action.
Sure.
And I know that you say that in the casino that you work at, there's no separation between poker surveillance and table game surveillance or something like that. But if this camera A covers this portion of the casino, and let's say whether it happens to be poker, right? And then the camera is not zoomed in at table 1 at the time, there's no way to go back on tape and then zoom in after the fact, right? It doesn't work that way.
It can. There are cameras, like we're talking like more modern day. They're called IP cameras. They're much more like high definition. You can zoom in on a still shot. but they're very expensive. And to my knowledge, not a lot of casinos are quite getting into those yet, or they're just starting to get into those. And because I've read in some of your comments that casinos treat poker players like homeless people, they kind of do, because they're not really playing with the casino's money.
Right. So you think that the technology is, so if they have a certain budget for technology and they're playing in a casino where there are table games that are played against the house, they might invest that technology where the house has an interest in the game.
I'm going to say yes. Like, for example, we have baccarat tables, okay? They have some of these IP cameras, and the quality and crisp quality is unbelievable. Even from a distance, you can zoom in, you can see the freckles on people's faces, you can count them. But when it comes to necessarily a game where there's no money involved necessarily, you're right. The budget may not go there first. Like, it may get there eventually, but all we're really doing in a poker room is problem solving, or preventing possible collusion or cheating, or solving problems like your calls.
So another thing that was brought up is that then why are they going to the camp? So what happens when they verify a bad beat jackpot and they can't see the cards? Like what?
Okay. So what happens with a bad beat jackpot? So dealer is going to call the floor over. The floor is going to say, okay, great. These guys have a bad beat. They're going to go back to the brush. They're going to pick up the phone. They're going to call surveillance. Surveillance is then going to pick a zoom-in camera. They're going to zoom in on the table. They're going to make sure all the cards are right. Then they will rewind the hand and take a look at it to make sure there was no funny card passing or exchanging or anything strange going on. But at the end of the day, the actual cards for that in particular hand are zoomed on after the fact, because they're kept on the table for verification purposes. Just like any jackpot on the floor, like if somebody wins a Caribbean stud poker or something, everything gets verified after. And the only thing you're really looking for before is like foul play, or somebody messing with cards, or somebody shuffling cards, or maybe cheating. Like, you're looking for all kinds of weird,
and that makes sense.
Things, right?
And I think I had probably misspoke down in the last video where I had agreed with the caller that he made a good argument about verifying bad beat jackpots. It's like, well, how can you verify a bad beat jackpot and you're telling me you can't see the cards? But what you're saying is that they very well might not see the cards when they verify a bad beat jackpot. It just depends on where the camera is necessarily zoomed in. They're looking for other things, right, in the hand. Right.
So on the still cameras, so again, my casino may necessarily have a still camera, like an overhead and a still, like a closer and a further away kind of thing. And the actual zoom-in camera, it could be focused on another spot in the room before you actually need to use it on, let's say, verifying a bad beat jackpot. Or if an operator is dedicating their time to watching poker, which not every operator does, because it doesn't necessarily feed the casino either. Like, it sounds horrible to say, but it is what it is.
Well, I want to touch on that too a little bit. So, because you had said to me that some of these cases could be, you might get a different answer from a different operator. And my question would be, how is that? Like, you're saying that one operator might call back down to the brush and say that we can't see it, whereas another guy that might know poker better might say we can see it?
So surveillance operators may come from different necks of the casino. You could have security experts, you could have back of the house experts, you could have table games experts, you could have all kinds of different experts in the room. And someone maybe, depending on what shift you're on, what time of day, you could have one person who's better at identifying cards or suits or whatnot.
Okay.
But like, especially when it comes to a poker situation, I would say that most of the floors and the supervisors and the pit managers take care of them before it ever gets to us.
Take care of,
because the situation, like if I use your example, where a floor would have come over and grilled the guy with the aces in that particular hand, is like, come on, man, did you have the losing hand? And they would have more leaned on getting the guy to say, yeah, I had the losing hand.
Right. Like, you think it could, like, that particular situation, at least at your casino, would have or should have been handled or could have been handled better because they didn't even necessarily need to go up to surveillance, which is what I have sort of gotten. I asked a couple people that I know play at the bike a lot, because the more I listened to that story, the more I was like, something might not be being conveyed. I mean, the guy sounded like he wasn't making it up, but I just still don't know, like, how every situation that I've seen in a situation like that was where if the floor came over and the dealer didn't know that there was a flush out there, if other people at the table said, yes, there was a 4 flush, this guy had black kings, let's say 3 people said that, like the caller said, I don't even know if it would get up to surveillance, would it? I mean,
in my casino, it wouldn't.
Right?
It would have gone to the villain in that case. Sir, did you know your opponent had the winning hand? And a floor could then judge. I mean, you can see body reactions. You see people's facial reactions. You're playing poker. People give things away. And you could easily see that the person would know that he had the losing hand, in my opinion.
Right. And again, that might be a function of who the floor. The guy said it was late at night, so that could have been a function of an inexperienced supervisor, though, too, right?
Very possible.
That might have just immediately gone to surveillance as the end-all, be-all decision when it could have actually been handled in a better way, right at the table. I think what we're learning about is that there's a lot of human variables in this case.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of things with surveillance is very reactive when it comes, especially situations like this. Like, nobody's going to catch this unless they're staring at the table ahead of time.
Right.
And at that hour in the morning, if poker was the only thing going on, maybe somebody was watching it. I don't know. I can't speak for that casino.
No, this has been very interesting. I just want to mention one other quick thing too, because some people still, it's still amazing to me how people don't understand this. Because you had mentioned something in your email where a lot of people think that the muck, and what I mean by the muck is sort of a dead zone, an end-all, be-all dead zone. And that's just simply not the case. Simply not the case. It's not even in the rules. It's not the case. Tournament rules are a little bit more stringent. But if a hand is, clearly retrievable, well, there's two extremes, right? Like, I've seen people try to angle because they know they have a losing hand against another player because it brushed up against the muck. It's dead. I mean, that's one extreme. Then I've seen other extremes, and I think you discussed this a little bit, where they might even recreate the hand by pulling the cards out of the muck, right? And recreating the hand.
Let's just say in this example with these two hands, if the dealer grabbed both hands and put them on top of the muck, and when the floor came over and asked the dealer, can you show me like which cards are the players? And he says, they're probably the top 4 cards on top of the muck in the pile. The floor is going to reach in and grab the first 4 cards, and if he sees that it's 2 aces and 2 kings, he's going to say, sir, were these yours? And sir, were these yours? They're both going to say yes, and situation's dealt with, right?
Right.
I mean, if they're a little more buried in the muck, which does happen too, it's a little harder to retrieve them, unless a player can point to, like, let's say one of the other 3 guys who said, I definitely saw the king of clubs there. They're right there in the pile, and he can point at them. I mean, the floor can pull them out and say, were these the right ones? He might give it one try, but if he's got a fist through the pile, he's probably not going to do it.
Right. Let me ask you one final question too. And because I've never actually seen this, or I've never seen somebody get caught in the act. Maybe they just don't make it public. Have you ever seen somebody cheat in poker? Like, I can understand somebody cheat in table games, but have you actually seen it in surveillance where someone was cheating in a casino poker?
Yep, I'm going to say yes.
Wow, okay.
I mean, small things from, like, stealing chips from your neighbor.
Oh, stealing chips, right.
Multiple times.
Right.
There's, let's say, a guy gets up to go to the bathroom. He's got a couple of black chips. Somebody might reach over and swipe one. Here's another situation where I've seen player goes all in, player loses the hand, and before they push their stack forward to pay off the winning player, they pick a purple chip off the top of the stack or something like that.
And actually, now that you say that, I take that back. I have seen someone thrown out for that, and she was notorious for doing it. So I think I was thinking in my head more like card swapping, but you're right. I've seen people palm chip, or it's happened where I've seen people get kicked out for palming chips, like, and then also too, actually at the bike, there was an incident. I won't mention the 2 names, but it was actually after the Live at the Bike show where one of the guys dropped some chips, like $100 chips, and then another player picked them up and didn't say anything, and then surveillance caught that. So yes, have you ever heard of any type of card swapping though at the table in poker?
Like between neighbors or anything like that? Yeah. Nothing that I've heard of at my casino, no. I mean, we've had people accused of collusion, like through text messaging and things like that, but nothing to the point of like switching a card with your neighbor. I mean, we get that stuff on the floor, the gaming floor. You get people who cheat on the floor. I mean, it happens probably more often than you think, but not necessarily in Hold'em or Omaha. So. Yeah,
it would just be so hard, I feel like, to pull that off, like in a casino type of environment, card swapping, but manipulating your stack when you're going to pay off an all-in, or stealing someone else's chips, or get paid for it. Oh, like padding
Yeah, like
chips?
you're a winning hand and you add a chip on. Like someone goes, okay, count down the stack, and someone's able to slip a purple onto the top of their pot, especially
Right.
in a 2-5 game or a bigger game, like a 10-25 game or something like that.
That's
It's
like
very
what
easy
pass
for someone to
posting is, right? Like in blackjack or
basically.
yeah.
It's just cheating. It's blatant cheating.
Yeah, you're just adding on to your winning bet after the bet is basically concluded, right?
Sure. Like the guy knew he won the hand, and he tries to drop an extra purple on his stack, so the other player who's got him covered or whatnot can pay him an extra $500.
Yeah, I'm going to say lastly too, as we're sort of been giving a lot of these live tips with plexiglass. I remember the situation, that lady at Hollywood Park. You have to be careful if there's somebody who commonly makes it look like they're angry when paying off an all in, and they're taking their chips and sort of shoving them by throwing them into the pot.
Yep.
Yes, that's what happened in that case, where she would grab a chip and then shove it in, so you couldn't really
shove
see
the rest of them in. Sure.
Yes, kind of like double fisted, like this. Boom.
Yeah, and the only way that's going to get caught
is
if another player at the table says, hey, that lady took a chip off her stack, and if she doesn't want to own up to it right away, then a floor would come over and a floor would push her, and if a floor can't figure it out, then they would call us to say, did this person have a purple chip on top of their stack of reds at the beginning of the hand or something like that?
Well, you know what's
that's easy to see.
You know what's interesting about that, and it kind of reminds me of this whole, as this Postle thing is sort of, nothing's really happening with it, and people are like, what could have been done to catch him? When that lady got caught at Hollywood Park, it was a player that saw it happen, and he kept his mouth shut, quietly went to the supervisor or the floor, told them what happened, didn't make a stink about it, and then they silently went out to surveillance. And
that's a good way to do it. So the player had the patience to wait it out and just quietly tell a supervisor, so the person necessarily wouldn't get scared and run away kind of thing.
Yep, that's what happened too. No, this has been an enlightening call. I appreciate it. I don't know if you have anything more to add, but
I mean, not at this moment. I mean, if you ever have any questions and related to this type of topic, you're more than welcome to reach out to me.
Okay, sounds good. All right, John.
All right, I appreciate you letting me in.
Thanks a lot for the call. You got it.